Well, just so everybody is aware, I'm Ryan Zarama, CEO at Centauro, and at this point, not the lead developer of Drupal Commerce, more of a product owner, with Jonathan from our team functioning as the lead developer of the platform, and really everybody from Centauro participating in the maintenance of the platform, development of new features, support, etc. And we've been engaged in a pretty big feature push over the last 6 months, specifically focused on order management improvement. So we actually completely reimagined the order management interface, and you'll see some of that today, although I won't go into all the nitty-gritty details. And the next major initiative from our team will actually be to flesh out our B2B feature set. So this, I guess the thesis of this webinar is that already today, any Drupal Commerce site can support both B2C and B2B sales within one site via configuration only, using modules that already exist, or working with Drupal as a platform to create custom views or role-based access to private product catalogs, whatever it might be. There's all of these tools already at your disposal, and it's good for us to speak intelligently to the marketplace about that, because obviously B2B is the last frontier in e-commerce that has not been thoroughly commoditized by the SaaS platforms. And in our experience, at least, these organizations that are engaged in B2B sales have constantly evolving needs, constantly evolving requirements, and a lot of niche needs that aren't going to be satisfied by off-the-shelf solutions, whether it's a SaaS platform or a Drupal module or what have you. But Drupal as a platform, having the flexibility in its tool set to build features quickly, and what I would say is like exposure to LLMs with respect to generating new features via AI, including custom modules, one of which I'll show in this session today, makes it a really strong contender for organizations looking to digitize their existing B2B processes. So I do want to be clear that I don't consider us to have a comprehensive feature set. We know we have real gaps, and I know, on this call today and watching are going to be the CTOs and lead developers, even of other platforms that are real leaders in the B2B e-commerce space. And so we aren't deluded about our own competency, but we also think that we have some special offer, and I'm going to start demoing that. So what we have here, what you're seeing on my screen, is Commerce Kickstarts. I think that should be familiar to most Drupal users. It's long been a distribution of Drupal optimized for Drupal Commerce implementations. But more recently, as of DrupalCon Atlanta, a little over a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, reimagined as a site template that uses the recipe system in Drupal to build out the demo store and then add new features to the site. So I'm currently not logged in. I'm just viewing Commerce Kickstart as it is, as an anonymous customer. And I can see the product, features on the homepage. I can navigate the blog and find, some information about a product I want to purchase. I can go to the full catalog and use the faceted search interface to find exactly what it is that I want. How about some perfume for my wife I guess Valentine's Day just passed, but let me go ahead and add that to my cart. And I'm just going to proceed through the standard checkout flow. I am going to go ahead and log in as a retail customer, because what you'll find is I have not done much to customize the retail user experience, but I've overlaid on top of this one site a tremendous amount of features for the B2B use case. Need this next day since I'm obviously behind on my Valentine's Day shopping. And I've now purchased my perfume. It's on its way. And if you haven't seen Commerce Kickstart lately, or seen it since our big release of Belgrade 3.0, that's the theme that powers Commerce Kickstart, you may not have ever even seen that focused checkout experience that I just walked through. But this focused checkout experience is obviously modeled after the most common checkout experiences online right now, but designed to be attractive, to give you full information, to go right into viewing order information with a fully printable receipt. Although I obviously would have been emailed a receipt for my purchase as well, and that is the classic B2C experience. Obviously, we are customizing this for all of our customer implementations with custom checkout panes, promotions, maybe enabling order comments so that a customer can leave notes with their purchase. So a lot going on in most of our builds, but that's the basic feature set. And if I were to log out and log back in as an administrator, we can actually see that order in the context of the new order management interface. So here's the order that I just placed as a customer. And viewing this, you might notice right away that the order edit tab is gone. And in its place are these edit links on these various cards of the order view page. Because Drupal as a platform and Drupal Commerce really pushes the edge on the entity relationship model. An order is not just a single order record in a database. Everybody probably understands that an order has order metadata and order items for each of the items on the order. But the order also links to a billing customer profile that can be edited here in the modal dialog. It links to a shipment that includes the shipping profile, but also the items to be shipped and the shipping method that will be used for them. Once this shipment has actually been, packaged by my fulfillment staff, we can drop in a tracking code for the customer to see and track their purchase. If this order, required additional workflow steps, they'd be visible in the order workflow card. Of course, if I have custom fields on my order, they would be visible within the order details card in modal dialog. And there's a whole activity log along with the ability for me as the administrator to leave comments. Let's go ahead and throw in a box of chocolates because Ryan is late on this gift. This is the recently revamped order management interface. Most common actions that you need to take on an order are now all available from the View tab. And most bits of information that you need to know about an order if you were servicing this customer are visible here as well, including things that previously you could only find on separate tabs, such as the payment and balance information, or the selected shipping method, or certain aspects of the order history. It's just a lot more functional, and our merchant customers, love it. Anybody that's already using Drupal Commerce and has not upgraded to Commerce 3.3 can access this new interface by performing that upgrade. We recommend pairing it with Gin and then also the latest release of Commerce Shipping to unlock the full feature set. In the release notes and the blog post that we'll be publishing soon about this will include all of the configuration details about how to activate various aspects of this user interface. So just real briefly, any questions about the standard B2C use case here? If not, we'll move on to the meat of the presentation. All right. Again, feel free to interrupt at any time. Now we're going to go into what I might do as the store owner, the site builder, to make this site fit for purpose, not just for direct-to-consumer sales, but also for B2B. So for example, you could imagine that I, as the site owner, am selling products direct-to-consumer through my site, but I also want to engage retailers to resell my products in their stores. And so I've configured various aspects of the sites to be purpose-built for retailers to find their discount information, to place purchases quicker, to reorder prior purchases, to even pay with alternate payment methods instead of just credit card, and maybe even to pay for invoices that they originate from phone sales, but then want to come and submit payment for online. So I'm going to demonstrate all of that feature set. But when you think about the primary difference between a B2C and a B2B website is, of course, How am I actually identifying a customer as a business customer? And then how am I establishing the organizational model for that customer within the system? In other words, Drupal Commerce by default in the B2C use case really just treats every user as a customer. But in a B2B use case, the customer is the organization that the user belongs to. In fact, they may even belong to multiple organizations and have purchasing authority for multiple organizations. So you have to be able to model well, to identify users as belonging to these customers. And then you can begin to, imbue in your organizational model settings like, is this organization or that user within that organization entitled to place an order on the basis of a purchase order only? Or must they always pay immediately with credit card? Or what is their discount level? Are they entitled to a discount at all? And what I'll say is that it's easy enough within Drupal to identify different types of user. Drupal makes that very simple through the roles system. So for this site, I have added to it a retailer role and configured it with permissions related to some of the B2B aspects of this customized site. But we need to do more. We do have a module called G-Commerce that uses the group module to actually provide a more holistic organizational model and to share data between different users of that organization. In other words, we've used this on a site to say that a organization group is a business customer. Members of it are all employees of that organization, and they have shared access to the same address book, file downloads, invoice history, etc. But I would just say that the G-Commerce module is not my personal favorite approach to solving this. And we have begun to build out instead the Commerce Customer module, really in the context of an active client engagement, to say instead of trying to work against all of the things inherent in the group ecosystem that we don't want in the commerce use case, we're going to actually create the concept of a customer as separate from a user, and then allow customers to have multiple bundles. So you can have a B2C or a B2B customer type with different functionality and with access negotiated through that customer record instead of always negotiating access to data through the user account. So that is very much a roadmap item and not not something that I can point to today as working. So for the sake of this demo, what you'll see instead is that we have added the retailer role, and then I'm just identifying the organization that users belong to via a taxonomy-based association, which is nice because taxonomy vocabularies can have custom fields on them. And so if I needed to do things like put custom discount levels or payment terms or messaging based on the organization, I could do that via custom fields on that taxonomy term for that organization. Obviously, this is a simplistic expression of how to model this, because what is my role within that organization? Well, it's not clear. I'm just a retailer. So there's that's where the Commerce Customer module will have to start to provide more of a framework on which we can build out some of those conditions and variable insertion in other parts of the user interface. Once I've identified a customer as a retailer via the user role, though, I now have access to through a variety of different modules and systems within Drupal and Drupal Commerce in particular to provide restricted access features, different views of things, different block layouts, different content access settings. And that's what I'm going to start showing now. So first of all, there's this question of product catalog segmentation. So as a retailer, first of all, I may just want to provide my business customers a faster way to purchase from me than having to navigate the standard faceted search interface. So what I've done in this site is I've just created a retailers section of the website where they can quickly access every product in the product catalog. And they could filter this by collection or brand if they know exactly what they want. And then they can quickly build up a cart. Now, I don't have Ajax form submission enabled on this view because I was just building it fairly quickly for the sake of demonstration. But it is building up an order based on my form submissions from that retailer's view, the same as if I were going to the individual PDPs and adding these products to the cart. Additionally, you can see that I have active a discount. These products used to cost more, but as a retailer, I'm getting 15% off the pricing that an anonymous user or just a regular retail customer would see. Additionally, I've configured this site using the prices module to give a further 10% off in the case of a purchase of 10 or more items. So let's find one that's nice and easy to see the discount on. Golly, they're all like weird, end in weird amounts. So I'm gonna buy 10 of these to stock the shelf at my retail store, and we'll see that once it's in my cart, that price is going to drop from $8.50, another 10% down to $7.65. Now, pricing and price calculation is another aspect of the B2B use case for e-commerce in general that is endlessly complex. We've worked with customers that, of course, will just offer, say, different levels of price discount based on the tier of B2B customer you are. So perhaps a standard trade customer is entitled to that 15%, but a gold tier trade customer is entitled to a 25% discount. Well, that's easy enough to configure in the promotions system in Drupal Commerce. And if you aren't familiar with this system, the promotions system lets you define any number of promotions, give them start and end dates so that any number can be active at any given point in time. You can queue them up in advance and have them expire automatically. They can be limited number of uses, limited number of uses per customer, etc. But what I've done to implement the retailer discount for this site is just created an evergreen unlimited use promotion that's active as of this morning and never expires. And this discount is just granting me 15% off every matching product, which right now is every product in the site. Although if I'd wanted to match the retailer's view, I would have actually restricted this to not show books as well, or show everything but books, but we don't have a quick negation here, so I didn't bother with that aspect of the configuration. But the idea is that I have a customer role condition on this promotion so that it only applies when the customer of an order is retailer. And notice I'm not using the currently active user role. This is coming from the context. I might be building out an order as an administrator on behalf of a third party. And I actually want the customer from their orders role to come into consideration in determining the price for that customer. These conditions are coming from the inline condition system that we have built within Drupal Commerce. And these conditions are helpfully available to anywhere that we wanted to inline like conditional availability or applicability of promotions, payment methods, shipping methods, etc. So on this site, for example, I did configure payment by purchase order as an option, and I was able to reuse that same customer role condition to make sure that only my retailer customers are entitled to pay via purchase order. I don't need just any old customer telling me to trust me, bro, as they place an order for my merchandise. You can have multiple tiers of discount if you wanted. These do respect sort order and compatibility settings. So for example, if I wanted, silver and gold tier retailers, I might use multiple user roles with multiple different promotions and ensure that the retailer discount promotions are not compatible with other promotions, and sort them in such a way that the highest tiered promotion is applied first whenever that retailer is placing their order. If I was building this out for a customer, though, I might actually negotiate that rate through perhaps a field on the actual customer record or on the organization term, or in the future on the customer entity that represents that business customer. So this was one form of applying discounts to business customers that requires no additional module and just configuration. However, we also offer the price list module for much finer grained control over the pricing offered to any given customer. And in this case, you'll recall my retailer's view showed that every retailer gets 15% off, but purchases for any product of 10 or more grant an additional 10% discount. The way that I've configured that is by creating a new price list for retailers that we can see is only applicable to users of the retailer role. The prices available to them are starting at the quantity of 10, although if I wanted to give special pricing, I could have started at quantity of 1. And this price is 10% lower than the price of that product in the product catalog right now. Now, these price lists don't have to cover everything in the product catalog. I could give special pricing to one customer for their most common products or negotiated pricing on items that they routinely purchase from us. It's very easy to create a new price list and associate it not even with a specific user role, but even a specific customer. So we're going to give Centauro special pricing. This is going to go just to my Centauro retailer user. And anytime that this retailer wants to buy our awesome Cocoa Fedora, they're going to get a steep discount. That's that influencer advantage. And so now if I were to log out and then log back in as that retailer, let's filter to, shoot, which category is it? I guess it's under maybe Urban Threads. My Cocoa Fedora was $12.50 as a base price with the additional 15% off applied. And I can see now that I get that Cocoa Fedora for a really handsome discount. Now, I'm worried about the different pricing strategies here because you can see that even in my quick example, I've kind of overridden myself. Because I've implemented the 15% off discount as a promotion, that gets applied during the order refresh process, where any processor on the site has an opportunity to adjust the price up or down. It could be up for taxes, down for discounts. But that happens after the base price for a product has been determined. Now, the base price for a product is typically coming from the price field on the product variation. But when you're using the price list, the base price is determined from that price list if a price is available from that list for that product. And then it's going to give me the best price. So this is even, lower than if I were just getting the Fedora as another retailer, not as Ryan from Centauro. On top of that base price, the promotions are then applied further. So you just have to bear that in mind. Your pricing strategy may or may not be compatible with one or the other system. But we generally find ways to work around that. For example, another way to work around not applying a promotional price on top of a deeply discounted price list price would be to define a custom condition plugin that says, hey, let's not apply this promotion to a price listed price. In fact, that's probably a good feature request for the price list module itself to provide that condition. Matt, if you could make a note of that, that would be an awesome feature for us to add. So these are just a few of the pricing strategies available to you. We have other customers where we go beyond what's available just from configuration into code, either to define custom price resolvers or custom order processors to apply discounts based on logic specific to the site. For example, one of our customers has just a 5-box discount, where if you buy 5 boxes of any of their product, you're going to get access to the bulk box pricing, which in their case is managed via a custom price field on the product variation. And so an order processor looks at the quantity of the order item, and if it sees it as 5 or more, it's actually swapping out the price from the base price field to that, the box discount price field. So there are a lot of ways to accomplish both just generic percentage-based discounts across the field, or bespoke pricing down to the product variation level. and the per customer level, whatever your requirements might be. One other thing that I didn't show is that if I were to access the site right now as just a normal retail customer, when I look in the urban threads category, I'm not seeing this knit hat in green. But when I log in as that retailer, I actually am seeing the knit hat in green. And the reason for that is whenever you have a user role associated with a certain type of customer, you have options within the Drupal module ecosystem to restrict access to any content entity based on that user role. I'm going to go ahead and log back in as the administrator just to briefly show how that was configured. Our product type for those physical products has a field on it that I've added of the entity access by role type. This is coming from the entity access by role module. I think it might be like entity access by role field module or something. But the idea behind this field is that when it's added to a content entity, you can actually alter the way that Drupal grants access to that entity's view route. So if we go back to my products listing and we look at that knit hat in green, we can see the field settings where I have determined to only allow access to this product to users of the retailer role. And if I'd left this at none, then it would be visible to any user. But by making it only visible to retailers, I can now have products in my catalog that are only available to privileged purchasers. These might be things that I might be contractually obligated only to sell to that retailer or distributor, and not to sell direct to consumer. For example, a family member of mine operates a soap store. It's called the Yellow Bird. They sell soaps through Amazon Marketplace and through a Shopify site. And they're buying the soap from a local manufacturer who also sells their soap direct to consumer. But they have promised not to sell my family members' soaps through their own channels. So these are proprietary blends, scents, whatever, branding and all that. And so like that, they could still use their website to sell products to my sister-in-law by restricting access to these products that only she's able to log in and see. So this is fairly common use case. It may be too that it's just a matter of a singleton versus a case. There are many different use cases for having certain portions of the product catalog, either on the product level or at the taxonomy term level, visible only to privileged users. And that's what we've configured here via the entity access by role field module. So real briefly, logging back in as a retailer and completing a purchase. Let's go ahead and add a few more items to my cart. I believe that hot air balloon picture is going to sell nicely in my store. I like my discount here. So let's go. All right. So I'm now checking out as a retailer. The experience looks very similar. If I'd already purchased before, I wouldn't have to re-enter my address. I would just be shown the address book. I wouldn't have to re-enter my credit card details. I would just be able to use my card on file. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose to pay via purchase order, which I'm entitled to do based on my user role. And now I'm going to pay and complete my purchase, and I'm going to send my check. Now, if I was building solely a B2B site, one of the things that I could also do is generate an invoice when an order is placed that has been marked as paid by purchase order, so that I can track, I can email that invoice or mail that invoice and track receipt of that payment. I can also restrict the number of orders or the amount of credit I'm willing to extend to a trade customer using settings in the purchase order module. And then as the administrator, as the merchant, it's my responsibility to note whenever that payment is received, so that that customer's credit balance with me is restored and they're able to continue making purchases on credit using whatever terms that I've agreed to with them. And you can see that in the payment gateway settings here where I've configured it. I've just said, hey, you can only have 2 open purchase orders. You could add instructions, allow them to actually upload a PDF of the purchase order document. And of course, as you can see, I've restricted this only to certain users to be able to use. Finally, I know
we've got one question real quick.
Go ahead.
Would that access restriction still be honored if a solar index is providing all the main product view fields?
It depends. So the catalog that ships with Commerce Kickstart is itself served from Search API, and so it is respecting the content access on on that entity. But if we go and look at that view, let's just do search here. Right now, I am still conducting the access checks on a per product basis. If I were to skip them, I could actually choose to bypass access checks. But generally speaking, because this is a view of products, and product information from the product index, that access control is being respected.
All right.
And a couple other things that I did in this particular site, it's not just simple new purchases that matter, but also helping retailers reorder quicker. So in this case, I've actually just created a custom view and placed it on the user account pages for retailer users only, showing all of my recent purchases so I can quickly repurchase the things that I purchased before. In a real client scenario, I might add the date of last purchase, the quantity of the purchase, etc., much like Amazon does on your order history page. But this was just a quick way to demonstrate that the tools that Drupal ships, particularly the views module, which is very powerful, and the role system, the access control system, everything, let me build this with no code in a matter of minutes. In fact, if I were to log back in as an administrator, we can see that this is essentially a view of order items correlated to the order that made them and correlated to the product that they were purchased for, sorted in reverse order by placed date and filtered only to show my completed orders, listing out the products that I've purchased with an add to cart form. And this is all it took in order to get this block configured and then placed in my block layout, configured only to appear in the content region for users with that retailer role. So Drupal as a business application platform is very powerful once you have, in the context of the page request, that user role or other condition sets that you might use to determine conditional visibility, availability, applicability of various rule sets. And it goes even crazier from here, given modules like the ECA module and other taxonomy access control based modules, things that go, even more fine-grained at encoding custom logic and visibility of elements within the site. Finally, we have the invoice module as well within Drupal Commerce. We've used this in B2B scenarios to do things like permitting business customers to place any number of orders in a given month, and at the end of the month, collecting all of their orders into a single invoice and issuing that invoice to the customer to pay the monthly invoice. That particular case that I had in mind was just for a job board, where business customers were entitled to place any number of job postings and then would pay for them at the end of the month based on their usage. That's a pretty sweet use case. We have another customer that actually still does phone sales and has customers who will call their customer service representative to input in order for them directly in NetSuite, their ERP behind the site. Their Drupal site is configured to ingest new invoices from NetSuite so that a customer, whether they place an order directly on the site or phone in an order, when they access their user interface, would be able to see all of their invoices in one location. Additionally, for those customers who want to pay their invoice online and don't mail in a paper check, they would have the ability to come in and actually choose an invoice to pay or all of their invoices to pay and be put into a custom checkout flow that's optimized just for invoice payment. Although obviously I should have restricted the purchase order from not being available in this for orders of this type. But I can use my card on file to pay off my open balance. And you can see that those invoice payments have been submitted and the invoices have been updated to paid. And then, of course, this interface will not let me pay them again. It's just like, yeah, you're done. Don't try that. Just for the sake of demonstration, just to show, I actually, noticed a bug in my configuration. It doesn't make sense for somebody to pay via PO and open invoice. So I can edit this purchase order payment gateway and restrict it by order type so that it's not available to those invoice payment orders. And now, if I were to go and let's go ahead and confirm an additional invoice for my admin customer, re-enter that purchase flow, I will not see purchase order as an option. All right, last but not least, I mentioned in the opening that we're seeing, Drupal's kind of compatibility with vibe coding, thanks to its, highly documented public code and really solid underlying typed data API and just general like Drupal APIs. We're seeing that we can launch new features that are kind of bespoke to customers really quickly, even with non-developers originating the business requirements, getting a module drafted, putting it up to a senior developer to review and confirm, and then launching that feature to a customer who may even just need a bespoke feature once. And the reason I think this is important is because I actually see the future of Drupal is that eventually, like, the contributed module ecosystem will essentially stop growing. We won't see feature modules being developed anymore because eventually you'll be able to one-shot a feature just with an AI assistant. And like as a module developer myself, like it gives me the heebie-jeebies because there's best practices and we have patterns for sharing code and making sure it's maintainable and secure and so on and so forth. And if I want to add a maintainer, well, at least that other person knows how to write Drupal code the same way that I do, and that's how we stay in sync with one another and so on and so forth. But what I realize is that if an AI is maintaining the code base, a lot of the things that we think are essential to contributed module development in Drupal are going to go away. In other words, it's sufficient for the AI to know how to maintain AI-generated code, even if two different code bases diverge in the way that they're implementing the same feature set, so long as that customer is getting the business value, which is the feature that works. There's a sense in which that's going to be okay, and as the tools continue to accelerate, it's going to do a much better job of maintaining a custom feature or a bespoke feature on a Drupal website than our best contributed module developers and maintainers have afforded us to date. So in this case, we had a customer with a need essentially to do last mile spot checking of their product catalog. And what they wanted was the ability to just, not that one, was to export, a section of the product catalog to CSV, open it up in Excel or Google Sheets or what have you, fine tune things, take a price here, spelling there, category term there, and then upload that back to the site in order to, get those updates on the site. And that's basically what our project manager on the project was able to produce, I believe, with Claude. I might have to double check with them on which AI he actually used. But knowing the feature set within an hour, and maybe two, I don't know exactly how long it took, but it was, between when I quit and when he quit for the day, we're only off by one hour time zone offset. He had this working. And then he fine-tuned it and he handed it off to the developer on the project to review and confirm before exposing this to the customer. But that customer could come in and export their product catalog to CSV. It's going to open up in numbers, of course, and then fine-tune, say, the meta tags that are associated with each of those product catalogs. I wonder if let me see if I can just pull the CSV into edge. Nah, I didn't like it. Okay. And then once he's fine-tuned all of the various aspects. Oh, there we go. Aspects of the CSV that he wanted to, he could re-import it. And of course, we're using different different versions of PHP in our environments. I'm now seeing deprecations that I haven't submitted back to him as a patch yet. But the idea is, this business customer really just wanted to spot check stuff, and we didn't want to build out this, via custom views and feeds and hope that everything scaled properly when he tried to upload 50,000 line CSVs to fix 3 typos on 3 different products. We were able to accomplish this, rather quickly. The customer is able to use it, and now that feature will go away. I mean, it basically will not be necessary, probably never again after launch, although the feature is always there if they need it. And I'm really curious to see how this might even tie into accelerating, our own gaps, closing our gaps. For example, while it's nice that we have the ability to quickly create a view that's customized to, bulk purchasing, well, it's kind of a bummer that right now I have to submit each of these add to cart forms individually, and it would be nice to be able to specify them by SKU, so we could one-shot a quick order module using, again, Claude. But the output that it has right now is not exactly what I'd want to put into Contrib, and certainly it doesn't look great in Belgrade. It's not optimized for this theme. But the idea here would be, hey, SKU-based product entry, let customers just go to town. Well, hey, how long would it take to whip this into shape, and can we close some of our gaps in a matter of hours instead of a matter of days and weeks? So we're really interested in exploring, accelerating that roadmap, but really aiming at closing the gaps with, some of our common B2B competitors, whether that's BigCommerce or even Shopify, more recently. Magento and Oro Commerce, of course, have very robust B2B feature sets. And then some of the more, enterprise platforms, Salesforce, NetSuite, et cetera. So definitely would love to hear from folks that are in the webinar, if not in the chat today, then in the Drupal Commerce Slack channel or elsewhere. Email me, ryan@centauro.io. Like, hey, these are the common annoyances for us, and let's see about closing some of those gaps by turning specs into modules and then having a senior developer refine them into good working order. And lest it go without saying, one of the primary strengths of Drupal as a B2B platform, of course, is its content management capability. So very often in B2B contexts, you need highly technical product data to be associated with individual products, such that you can, I don't know what's going on here, doesn't like my width. There we go. And of course, I forgot which of these product pages is really just beefed up with product data. But this is just an example of using the content management capabilities to really dig in deep into the specifications of products that are used in a highly regulated and very technical B2B use case, that of selling enzymes and other bioreactive agents for laboratory testing, pharmaceutical development, et cetera. And they can even make additional content available, on a private basis to resellers or distributors for the sake of channel marketing as well. So, this is not a Drupal's an awesome content management system presentation, but I didn't want that to go without saying that in the B2B context, being able to create custom landing pages, distribute marketing material, move certain product at certain times, is a key strength of the platform that most e-commerce platforms don't have baked in. Are there any questions before we wrap up at the 15-minute mark here?
Yeah, we got one. Like, how this might take a little while to unpack, but it's how easy it is to upgrade or migrate from Drupal Commerce in version 7 to D10, D11 to take advantage of some of these features?
Yeah, no, the answer is it's not. Unfortunately, the problem is the architecture of Drupal 8 Plus is dramatically different from the architecture of Drupal 7. So the complexity of the upgrade really depends on how custom your Drupal 7 instance is. If you have a pretty basic store, the upgrade process isn't hard. You would just actually rebuild the site on Drupal 11 and then do a data migration to migrate your Drupal 7 commerce data or rubricart data to Drupal 11. And that migration itself isn't challenging. The migrate module exists. We have sample code, the commerce migrate module with various plugins and blog posts about how to map the Drupal 7 architecture to the Drupal 11 architecture. But depending on what you've done to customize your Drupal 7 site, you might have to re-architect features and have a more challenging upgrade path. I'd say that's going to come into play, especially if you have customizable products. We've switched from how we manage customizations. You also no longer have nodes as products in Commerce 2 and 3. It's a product entity where you would situate a lot of the fields and then product variations, which are the Drupal 7 product entity. And so like where certain bits of data exist is going to differ. And then of course the attribute model has changed as well. In Drupal 7, a lot of people end up using taxonomy terms, if not just list text fields for attribute values. Whereas in Commerce 2 and 3, we have purpose-built entities for determining attribute sets and attribute values, and then a more complex chain of getting those into add to cart forms. So what I'd say, Yannick, is feel free to ask specific questions about migrating different aspects of the platform in the Commerce Slack channel, and I'm sure if not somebody on our team, somebody in the community would be there to give some guidance. But I'd say like for example, we have a merchant website we just launched last night, and it was 2 Drupal 7 Commerce 1.x sites of a highly customized Drupal 7 install profile that a third party had developed, and we were able to migrate them to Commerce 2 using Commerce 3 using Kickstart as the foundation within a fairly tight turn. I think it was like 1 to 2 months. I'd say the overall project budget was around 50 grand. And those sites have launched, and the migration effort, well, again, I think we budgeted probably 2 weeks for that migration effort just to get through any of the idiosyncrasies and the differences in the data model. But it's not like it took months to accomplish the data migration alone. And oftentimes too, I think what you'd really want to do, if it's your own site or if you're doing this on behalf of a merchant, is don't just kind of reproduce in Drupal 11 the architecture of the Drupal 7 site. That's a mistake we see a lot of people make. But actually appreciate the differences in the platform and know where you actually need to leave features behind and not reproduce them within the Drupal 7 site. A lot of things demand recreation, even if it's just to migrate to using Layout Builder or waiting a little bit longer and migrating to Drupal Canvas, which is kind of the Figma in the back end that's in development right now within Drupal core.
All right, thanks. Someone just asked follow up to the entity access by role feature. Is it also possible to use that for a role in a group, like a user in a company, instead of like a global Drupal role?
As far as I know, I don't know of any integration between the 2 modules, so the group module and the entity access by role. So I think you'd end up kind of just having to use a user role and then synchronize perhaps between the 2. But I haven't looked into the actual plugin system that the entity access by role field module is using. But maybe they have a way to define a new plugin that negotiates access through that. I do know that like in our implementation of the G-commerce module for our customer, we did make extensive use of the group roles to even identify like customers or users within that customer who could only prepare an order and request a quote but not actually place the order. Then other purchasing managers could come in and approve the order and actually submit payment. And this is for some B2B file downloads, basically standards documentation. Once the purchasing manager placed the order, then those files were available to the customer through their customer dashboard. So there's some neat stuff that you can do with the different role sets within groups, and that's something that we would like to see reproduced in the Commerce customer module that we're currently developing. But right now, the only way that I know of is through the group module and some customization there. And I know other folks are doing other cool stuff in this space. Like there's a lot more even to the modules that I've shown. Like the priceless module, you can go find the case study on Drupal.org when we first developed it in partnership with New Media, which is now Frontcom in Norway. I mean, that sucker was powering price lists of up to 250,000 SKUs for a massive institutional bookstore and B2B book selling platform. It was amazing. The promotion system can do a lot more. There's a lot more going on under the hood here, but hopefully this was a good overview that at least demonstrates that even without code, you can begin selling B2B with Drupal Commerce today. And then depending on where you need to take it, you can kind of close the gaps in that last mile with configuration of existing Drupal modules or with custom development, including even AI-assisted development to close the gaps specific to the business's use case with relatively low effort. We're talking, again, in some cases, entire feature sets developed within a matter of hours that previously may have taken weeks to bring to the table. So really looking forward to making it even more powerful for you.
Yeah. And before we go, can you speak to, as I know a lot of B2B implementations are going to be integrating with something on the back end, right? ERP system, CRM, something. And how would you go about, or at least wanted to raise the possibility of pulling information or syncing for some of these promotions, some of this, like defining groups, defining abilities for prices, promotions, invoicing, all this other stuff, because a lot of B2B things are not going to be living 100% on the e-commerce side itself. It's just one piece of the
Yeah,
operation.
absolutely. I mean, we've integrated, like I said, live integrations with NetSuite, with QuickBooks, with other bespoke ERPs, JDE, a wide variety of systems. And the integration strategy really just depends on, what is it, a bidirectional sync? Is it just an export? Is it a routine nightly import to update product prices and availability? Different strategies based on the requirements. I know it's kind of a lame answer. It depends. But the idea is that Drupal offers frameworks for scheduling jobs via cron, queuing items for import to process them asynchronously, so you aren't bogging down a single page request or bogging down a user's checkout with an export process that might hang or be stuck in a queue. We're typically, I'd say, typically writing bespoke integrations out using client libraries if we have access to them. I don't like depending on third-party libraries because sometimes you get screwed, like some of us may have been by the PHP JWT library's recent, the Firebase's JWT security advisory, like stuck 3 layers deep in the supply chain of some Drupal modules that prevented Composer from building because of those SAs, security advisories. So we tend to like to just do a direct integration, and then when we're ingesting, if it's webhook based, we do have a webhook module that kind of facilitates defining these webhooks and tracking their usage. But it could be as simple to as exposing custom REST endpoints, either through the JSON API module or just a custom module entirely to facilitate that communication from the third-party system into Drupal. Classic example of this could be the ShipStation module, which exports transactions from Drupal Commerce to ShipStation, and keeps them the same because they are managed through ShipStation for fulfillment. So that's a good module to go and look at to see some of the patterns that we use and recommend. But generally speaking, you got to queue it, and I'd say the strategy really just depends. On our roadmap is to start to fill the gaps of some very common connectors. So expect to see a published roadmap that includes QuickBooks export at the very least, so you don't have to keep writing that bespoke. But other platforms, I think, will just be on an on-demand basis.
Yeah. But basically, just in summary, all these things that you've shown can be informed or helped define by an external data or external system. It just
Absolutely.
takes some work and planning to figure that out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the final things, does Commerce 3 support Commerce license and file for digital products? I think the answer is yes for that. Correct.
Yes, and in fact, the Commerce Kickstart comes with sample content for showing file download sales, so you can go try that out. And in case you aren't familiar with Commerce Kickstart, just go to the project page on Drupal.org. It's a composer project template, so it's really easy to spin it up, start it up with DDev for local development, and put it through its paces. If you don't have time to do that, or you don't have a machine where you can do that, go to simplytest.me. It's the website, https://simplytest.me. And there's a Drupal Commerce demo button that will install Commerce Kickstart. You can log in as admin, and access the full latest feature set and see it in action.